So I need to say a few thank yous. First, Chris, for the introduction. He always makes me sound better than I feel like I am. And then for you guys, I'm up here this week, which means I still have a job, which means you guys didn't call and complain about the illustration last week. So deeply appreciate that. My family does as well. Thank you. We are in a series, as Chris said, called Out of the Shallows. And we started with this idea of this childhood memory. It's kind of this built-in memory that for the first time, maybe you're at the lake or a pool, and you're in the shallow end and you feel the deep end calling, and it's time to step out. It's that moment of bravery. It's that stepping out into the deep end for the first time. It's a childhood memory that I think many of us have, and if maybe you've reached a point in your life where it's now your kid's childhood memory or your grandkid's childhood memory, but it's kind of that core memory that we all have where for the first time, we're willing to embrace the fear. We're willing to step out of our comfort zone, out of the shallows, and kind of take a plunge into the deep end of life. And as we found last week, this is true of our life, right? It's true of our relationships. When we take a step out of the kind of the shallow end of relationships and take the plunge into a serious one, or finances, or career, there's something that goes along with that. There's really two things that go along with that. And the first one is this. First, we're grateful every time we get to do that. And the second is we don't want to go back. I've never met anybody who stepped out into a serious relationship and said, no, I wish I could go back to middle school. We were passing notes and it was weird and awkward and there was a third party. We're happy that we're there, and we don't want to go back to what was. And as it's true of our life in all things, it's also true of our spiritual life, that we can take a step out of the shallow end of our faith, that maybe we find ourselves looking for more, or curious for more, or maybe we're here and we experienced more at one point, but we're wondering if we could ever experience that again. And if you find yourself here and you're wondering, is there something real about God, or perhaps can I experience that something real again? That's what this series is about. It's about how we take a step out of the shallows, or out of the place that we find ourselves in, maybe the stagnation that we've been in for years, and we're uncomfortable with it, and wanting something different, wanting to step into something new. That's what this series is about. There is something new. There is something different. There is the deep end. And if we're willing to discomfort ourselves a little bit and step out into the unknown, we can experience something beautiful. We can experience more of the things that God has for us. We can experience a different level in our faith than perhaps we ever have before. And our faith becomes more powerful to us and more compelling to those around us. Now, as we started this off last week, the obvious counterpoint to this is many people think, well, Jim, isn't that the church's job, or isn't that your job? Or he's here this week, so now we can point the finger over here and say, isn't it Chris's job? And for many of us, the idea is, yeah, and I would even agree, yeah, that is part of our job. But as we talked about last week, as we looked into this, the passage in the book of Hebrews, the Apostle Paul kind of unravels this idea. Whoever wrote it, I think it's the Apostle Paul, so it's unknown. But whoever the author of Hebrews is, he kind of unravels this idea. But yeah, even if the church does their job, you could still end up on the shallow side of your faith. Even if God's doing his thing, and God is doing his thing, and he's working his plan out, you can still end up on the shallow side of faith, because it's contingent on us taking a step, on us doing something about it, that there's some involvement that we need to step out of the shallows and into the deep. So that's what this series is about. It's about finding those things, about finding the dials, the areas of life that we need to step into. We're going to look at 4. We looked at 1 last week. We're going to look at 4 over the course of this series of the things that we need to step into, the dials of our faith that we need to begin to turn up. Last week, we uncovered the first one, and the idea was simply this, that to get out of the shallows into the deep end of our faith, we needed to learn to feed ourselves. That there is a progression in life, right? As we age physically, that you might start off with milk, but eventually you move on to solid food, and you grow, and you mature, and you become healthy and strong. As the same is true physically, it's also true of us spiritually. That eventually we have to put down the bottle and pick up the fork, and that was the really awkward illustration that we talked about. But eventually you have to put it down and you have to pick up a fork and you have to start feeding yourself. That's step 1 for getting out of the shallows. You have to start being a self-feeder. The shallows can be bottle-fed, but the depths, they have to be self-fed. And last week I introduced this challenge to all of us that I hope you're a part of. I heard from a few of you in email this week who are looking to be a part of it or enjoying it, and that's this. It's called 21 Days of Discipleship. That we're going to go on a journey to read through Scripture, to dive in, to begin this idea of feeding ourselves, to put down the bottle, to pick up the fork, and start feeding ourselves. And if you haven't been a part of that challenge, there's a QR code. I challenge you again. Be a part of it. Become a self-feeder. Become somebody who's willing to take a step out of the shallows and into the deep end. Today, for principle number 2, we're going to take things in a little bit of a different direction. Just as an illustration, I'm going to give you a quick update on my life. And the first two things have kind of collided with me, and this is the first one. I'm 44, I'm married, and I have 3 daughters and a job. And that's a lot. And then this second thing is this wasn't something new that kind of collided with me, but I'm Italian. I had a beautiful, wonderful Italian mother who loved to cook, and I loved to eat. And then she taught me how to cook, and I still love to eat. And then this idea began to collide with my doctor, who then gave me a report and said, Jim, you might need to fix this a little bit. So over the course of the last 2 months, about 6 to 7 weeks, I've been challenging as some other guys my age. Really, it's been this epic battle to try to lose the results of somebody who loves to cook and loves to eat. We have a word for this in our culture. You may be familiar with this word, and that word is this. We call it the dad bod. Some of you guys might be struggling with this. You know what I'm talking about, right? Over the course of time, things begin to feel a little differently, mainly your clothes. Google gives us a definition of this. I'm actually going to read this to you because I thought this was quite hilarious. This is the Google definition of dad bod. Dad bod is the type of physique a man earns when the increasing pressures of work life and married life, and especially fatherhood, no longer allow him the time or the drive to maintain a hard-toned figure. It continues. If human bodies were cuts of meat, the dad bod would be more marbled ribeye than filet mignon. If human bodies were sea mammals, the dad bod would be more like a grazing manatee than a speedy dolphin. Google's cruel. It continues. The dad bod is more mudslide than mountain, soft serve than sorbet, sad trombone than clarinet, more mashed potato than skinny fry. So if that's you, feel really encouraged this morning, and all you guys who struggle with the dad bod. Here's the thing. The point is this, is that as you begin to age, you begin to feel the effects on your body. And if you're not aging, if you're still young, as some of you are, and you're laughing like, that's just ridiculous. But I just have a word for you that most men my age and my stage of life know. Just wait. It catches up. Like it may be easy for you now with your like age 20s metabolism, but eventually at 35, metabolism pieces out, and all the Doritos Locos Tacos you've been eating are going to catch up with you and smack you in the face. So it'll catch up. The thing that's interesting about this, and a lot of you guys know this, it's just like it's always there, isn't it? You can work really hard to lose it, but it's like it's one bad week away. It's one or maybe a bunch of DoorDash orders to Brooklyn Pizza in Wesley Chapel. If you know, you know. It's always there, and it's just kind of lingering in the background. The idea is this: so what do I do when I don't like, or maybe I'm not happy with what I look like physically? So over the last 6 weeks, like I said, I've been on this journey to begin getting myself in shape and losing my dad bod. I know. I turned to the side and be like, Jim, where did you go? It's amazing. I know. It takes a lot longer than 6 or 7 weeks. You have to work hard. But when the process of working, what do we do when we're not happy with what we look like physically? And this is why there are so many fitness trainers and gyms and health experts and, influencer gurus and fitness apps out there, because everyone wants to know, when I'm not happy with what I look like, what do I do? And there's really two things that we have to do. And the first one is this: it's calories in, right? We have to be aware of our calories. Now, for me, I didn't, as I said, I didn't struggle with this. I had an Italian mom who taught me how to cook. I knew how to cook. I knew how to eat. Calories were coming in plenty. But perhaps what I needed to look like and adjust was the quantity and the quality of my calories. But every kind of health expert, every guru, every app's going to be concerned about the calories in. What are you consuming? What are you bringing into your diet? So to illustrate this is, you're going to keep playing with me just a little bit today. This is going to be my couch. I was going to take one of the blue couches in the back, but you guys love those seats. And if you didn't complain about me last week, you definitely would have complained about me this week if I did that. But this is what we do, right? We sit on a couch and we enjoy our life. This is where I binge watch Cobra Kai and eat jalapeno Cheetos and order the pizza from Brooklyn Pizza. This is calories in. This is my consumption. It's the couch. It's where I live. And this part isn't necessarily bad. You need some calories in, but most of us end up staying here. This is only step one of how to get in shape and how to lose your dad bod and feel better about yourself physically. You have the couch and you consume from the couch, and it's all calories in. But we can't stay there. I mean, it would be awesome, wouldn't it? Like, how many guys wouldn't love to know that if I just sit here and eat the jalapeno nachos and the pizza, that I could eat my way to a six-pack? Like, who doesn't want that? That would be amazing. But that's not how the couch works. That's just step one of the equation. Step two of the equation is calories out. At some point, you got to begin to exert some energy. At some point, you got to begin to do something with the calories that are coming in, and that's what these are for. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. You're looking at this thinking, Jim, that's not a lot of weight. Well, here's the problem. I asked Chris to bring his heaviest weights this morning, and this is what he showed up with. So, sorry. But this is what we do. Eventually, you get to a place where you just need to begin to lift, right? We go to the gym, and if you don't have a gym membership, maybe you have dumbbells like these or kettlebells, or you go to the yoga class, or you have a Peloton. But eventually, at some point, we have to begin to move, and this is calories out. This is what we do. And I know, all you CrossFitters are thinking, Jim, I could do this all day. I can't. Remember, six weeks, that's where I'm at. And I have to do this twice. So we're just going to do this a little more, then we're going to put them down, and that's good for today. This is calories out. And this represents how we need to live. There's a balance. There's calories in, and we need that consumption. We need the fuel. But then there's calories out, and we just have to begin to increase our calories out. For many of us, I don't want you to get lost in the science. This isn't a message on physical fitness, but I don't want this to be lost on us. If you want to change the way you look physically, you have to get off the couch, and you have to begin to work out. You're in church on Sunday, so let's spiritualize this. What happens if you don't like the way you look spiritually? What happens if you find yourself feeling like you might be in the shallow end of your faith? I'm curious, and I'm not sure I believe all of this, or I believe, but I have a lot of questions, and I just don't know. I'm not sure how to answer those questions. I've been doing this for years, and I've kind of been a pro at it, but then I've taken a step back. There's a little bit of stagnation there. I find myself in the shallow end, and I'm not happy about it. If the same is true physically, maybe perhaps the challenge for us this morning is, could the same be true spiritually? You see, most of us, when we hit this bump in our faith where it feels like, man, I'm just not happy with where my faith is. I'm not happy with how I'm growing. I don't know about you, but I know this is true of me. This is what I find myself doing. I find myself finding the couch. And I sit on the couch, and I begin to consume more experiences. Right? I turn the dial up. If I'm going to start attending church more, and I'm going to sing more worship songs, and maybe on my drive, I'll listen to a Christian podcast, or I'll take out a Christian book, and it becomes, I'm not happy in my faith, so I'm just going to begin to consume more. But isn't that calories in? It's like our response to not being happy where we are is, I just want to sit on the couch. And by sitting on the couch, I'll get to the place I've always wanted to be. And I want to propose this morning is that I think we're getting it backwards. I think that the default thing we run to kind of encourage our faith and work out our faith is actually just overconsumption and overindulgence. That's hard for a lot of us to hear, but it didn't come from me. We're going to look at a passage of Scripture this morning in the book of Philippians. It's actually a letter to the church in Philippi, the group of people who would be known as the Philippians. The Apostle Paul writes this letter, and it's really interesting, the context here. The context is always good, but in this case, it's really interesting. The Apostle Paul was this missionary traveling around the Mediterranean Rim, planting churches. Philippi was this Roman community. It was kind of this Roman colony, and he happens upon it, and he meets some people who he begins to preach Jesus to, and they fall in love with Jesus, and they begin to follow him, and they plant a church, and then he travels on to other areas. And now he's away from these people. He's loved them, he's worked with them, he's planted the church, but now he's in prison. And he writes them this letter from prison, and you get the idea that he's writing them with the love of a father, love of a leader, like I've worked with you and I care for you, and I wish I could be with you right now to teach you this next step of your faith journey, but I can't. So let me show you, let me write to you about how to increase in your faith, how to grow in your faith, how to begin to step out of the shallow end. These are people who were hungry for God, and they just needed the direction. And the Apostle Paul writes to them. Before we get to the game plan of how to do that, I want to kind of jump to the end of the passage we're going to read. And this is the promise of Paul. This is the result of those who he says, if you follow through on this game plan, guys, the Philippians, if you follow through on the plan I'm going to lay out for you, this is what the result will be. He says, then you will shine among them, people like stars in the sky. I was reading that today, and I asked him, is that like a Coldplay song? I'm pretty sure Coldplay just stole that from Paul, right? Like I think you're like a sky full of stars. What a heavenly view. Paul says that's going to be you. If you follow the game plan, you'll shine among them, among the people around you spiritually. It's like if you go to the gym and you see that guy who spent all his time working out. He's just a monument of physical fitness. It's like, how does he get there? Paul says that's going to be like you if you follow through on this game plan. People will look and they'll wonder and they'll be amazed. That's the end result. And then I'm going to take us back to where he starts things. Not really where he starts. And this is kind of the precursor to it. He's taking us back to this idea of calories in, calories out. A few verses earlier, he says this, for it is God who works in you. This idea of calories in. This is like, I want to do the right thing. God is working in you to will, to want to do the right thing, and to act, which is to actually do the right thing in order to fulfill his good purpose. He's saying he has a really good plan for your life. And he wants to bring about this plan for your life. He wants to lead you into this new thing, this good thing, into the depths and out of the shallows. Have you ever experienced God working in your life? Like you show up on a Sunday morning and you hear a message Chris preaches, and it's like, man, it's like God was speaking to me through that. It's almost like he knew what I had to hear. It's like does he have like some weird telepathy? Is he tap my phone lines? Like, is he talking to my friends? How did he know? Because everything he said, it hit home. It was so applicable. That's God working in you. That's God doing something that nobody else can do. Or maybe it's when you sing a worship song and you come and you know, the worship song this morning, what a beautiful name it is. And it just hits you and the words hit you and it captures your heart and your emotions. And it's like, I just needed that today. That's God working in you. Maybe it's like when you read the Bible, a passage of scripture, and you open it up and you read the words and it's so applicable or it's so convicting. That's God working in you. Maybe it's when you listen to a podcast. You know, Christian podcasts are really popular where you listen to your favorite Christian preacher from somewhere else in the world and you listen to his messages all the time and it kind of hits home. You open a theology book and you're reading and it's just like you're underlining everything because it just feels like it's speaking directly to you. Paul would say that's God working in you. That's calories in. That's a little bit of the couch. And he said that matters. That's important. You need the calories in. You need to, that was the whole point of last week's message. You need to begin to become a self-feeder. That's calories in, and that matters. But Paul said that's not all of it. And this is how we know it's not all of it. The first word in this verse is for. He's saying, whatever I just talked about, this idea of what was, this is for. This is what comes after that idea. God's working in you, and he's doing this amazing thing through what you're reading, and through what you're experiencing, and through what you're singing, and through what you're doing. He said, but let's back it up. He starts the passage this way. Therefore, my dear friends, as you have always obeyed, not only in my presence, like, man, when I was working with you and we were planning the church and we were forming this friendship, all these relationships, it was beautiful and it was amazing. But now much more in my absence. Like, I can't be with you, but I want to be with you. I can't be there to tell you this and to show you this. So in my absence, let me write you this. Continue to work out your salvation. And that word salvation is synonymous with your faith. Continue to work out your salvation. Continue to work out your faith with fear and trembling. Like, it's a really big deal. Like, eventually you've got to start doing something or working out, he would say. What he said before, God is working in. Don't run back to the couch. Those are good and that's important. But eventually you got to start working out. Eventually you got to get off the couch and you got to come over and you got to pick up these heavy 15-pounders. And you got to begin to lift weights, right? You got to get off the couch. You got to start doing some work. You got to do something with all the things that are being poured into you. You got to get up and you got to find someone to serve. You got to get up and you got to find someone that you can begin to build a relationship with so you can introduce them to the idea of Jesus that changed your life. You got to show up on a Sunday morning and not just show up here, but maybe you show up and you head out to Wamba or Upstreet or students and you begin to serve as a small group leader and you begin to give your life away to the next generation. You got to do something with your faith. You can't just sit on the couch. The couch is good, but that's not where faith gets deep. That's working in. He said, and then God wants you to pick up the weights, and he wants you to start going and working out. You got to do something with all the things that are being poured into you. Don't run to the couch. He would say, get off the couch. Do something else with your faith. But most of us, as Christians, when we experience a bump in our road, in our spiritual life, in our faith, we run back to the couch. I got to get in church. I got to hear more. I got to read more. Paul said, no, maybe the challenge for you is to get off the couch. Start working out what God's already working in. Therefore, my dear friends, as you have always obeyed, not only in my presence, but now in my absence, continue to work out your salvation with fear and trembling. Because it is God who works in you to will and to act in order to fulfill his good purpose. So the secret to this, the game plan to all of this, is really to just kind of wrap up what Paul says and put it another way, is you need to begin to work out what God is working in. You need to begin to work out all the things that God is working in. You need to begin to take a step out of perhaps your spiritual comfort zone, the spiritual bubble you've been in for a while. You need to take a step out, and you need to begin to pick up the weights and work out all the things that God is working in. Calories in, calories out. Calories in as you come and you sit and you experience and you worship and you read and you study. And calories out as you go out and you serve and you lead and you do small groups and you lead a small group and you lead a child in their small group. It's calories in, it's calories out. See, a deep faith is an exercised one. A deep faith is an exercised one. There's a lot of us here that maybe we need to hear that this morning. Or maybe we need to be reminded of that this morning. And here's why. Because a lot of us, it's easy for us to just grab the couch and sit on the couch and spend our spiritual life right here. We just collect more church experiences. We collect more worship songs. We collect more books. We do more Bible studies. And then maybe we get unhappy with the church, right? So we go and we find another church and we collect a different experience from a different church and different worship songs. And it's all about this collection of experiences. We're just collecting experiences. We're just collecting calories in. You know what we call that in like the fitness? What they would call it in the fitness world? That's just overindulging. It's just overeating. It's like you hit the buffet line and you wreck the buffet. That's calories in. And this is what we tend to do with our faith. I'm not happy with where I'm at. So I'm going to find a seat and I'm going to sit and I'm going to consume. There's one problem with that. Deep is not a collection of experiences. The church services, as good as they are and as personal as they might feel, it's deep. A deep faith is not a collection of experiences. This is, while it's good, if I'm honest, this is the beginning of faith. This is the shallow end of faith. Deep is a collection of applied experiences. It's in the doing. It's when we begin to put our faith into action. I'm stealing this from a pastor who I heard quote this. I thought this was brilliant. Sitting in a 3-day Christian worship conference or sitting in church for 3 days doesn't make you a deeper Christian any more than sitting in a garage makes you a car. But isn't that what we tend to do? I'm unhappy. I don't like where I'm at. I need something deeper, so I'm just want to sit and somebody feed me. Paul said that's the shallow end. The depth is in the application. You guys, this isn't my idea. I didn't come up with this. This is Jesus' idea. I just stole it from him. As a matter of fact, in Jesus' most famous message, the Sermon on the Mount, he wraps up this entire message, this message that he teaches everywhere to tons of people. This is his message. And he wraps up his message with this concluding thought. Hey guys, I want to wrap it all up this way. That any person who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like, he's like a wise man who builds his life on a rock, on this deep rock, and your foundation is deep and it's firm and it's solid and it goes all the way down. He said, but conversely, if anyone hears these words of mine and doesn't put them into practice, anyone who finds a seat and collects experiences, one church from another, one song to another, one book to another, one podcast to another. He said, he's like the man who builds his house on the sand, and it's shallow, and eventually it falls. Because depth is not about experiences. It's not about collecting experiences. It's about applying it. It's amazing to me to read through the life of Jesus. Did you know that everything we read about in Jesus was done in 3 years of ministry? Just 3 years. I mean, if that doesn't put your life into perspective and kind of convict you a little bit about what we can get done in a short period of time. 3 years, he did everything. And over those 3 years, at least twice that we know of, he sent his disciples out to go and do something in other areas of the world to begin to put their faith into practice. Now, if you're one of the disciples and you know the time's limited, and some of them should have had an idea because Jesus talked about his time being limited, you would think the argument would be with Jesus, shouldn't we wait to do that till after you're gone? We only have you for 3 years. Let's wait. Let's consume everything we can from you. Just another talk, just another message. Just tell me that Sermon on the Mount thing one more time. And Jesus like, no. You've got to get out. You've got to start working out what God's working in. That's how your faith grows. Because if you don't do this now, when I leave, you're going to have a shallow faith. And that's not what I want for you. I want to take you into the deep, and I want to show you all the things that God has for you. I want you to begin to experience his faithfulness and his goodness in ways that you never have before. But to do that, you've got to step out and you've got to start working out what God is working in. For example, for you, for today, you got to go join Inside Out and be a small group leader. Give your life away to some incredible middle schoolers and high schoolers. You may want to quit at the end of the week. I get it. But I guarantee you this, you'll be deeper. Go give your life away to some amazing elementary students in Upstreet. Become their small group leader and watch their faith begin to develop. And tell me at the end of that if it doesn't make you a little bit deeper. Go love your neighbor unconditionally and serve them sacrificially. Just begin to serve. Just begin to show up. Just begin to care, because that's how Jesus cared for you. And when you begin to see, or they begin to express a need, that they need some freedom, they need some healing, you just extend the invitation. Hey, you should come to church. Tell me that doesn't make you deeper. You go serve someone in our community. So with your time or with your finances, go invest in somebody else. Tell me that doesn't make you deeper at the end of it. How about this one? Decide to conquer a sin. Actually do something with the things that God's been telling you. You've read about it, you heard about it, someone talked about it, and it deeply convicted you. And it's so easy to just go sit in the car and go back home and sit on your physical couch. But what if we actually did the work? What if we actually worked through it and we began to conquer and to overcome this sin, this thing in our life that God's kind of pointed out to, that all the people around us already know, they already see it, and they're going to be so happy when we actually overcome it? What if we actually did the hard work and we overcame the thing that's been blocking us for years, that's been upsetting our relationships for years, that's been holding us back for years? Tell me at the end of that, your faith isn't a little deeper. Jesus said the idea here is you got to go and you have to do. And sometimes we're so content to just show up and find a seat and sing. And don't get me wrong, I am so glad you guys are here today. This is part of the process. It's calories in. You need to come and you need to sit and you need to hear. But if that's where our faith ends, Jesus said, guys, you're missing the best part. That's God working in. But you got to allow God to begin to work out all the things he's working in you. You got to get off the couch. You got to pick up the dumbbell. You got to start working out your faith. And Paul said, if you do this, if you follow this game plan through, let me tell you what will come for you in the end. He says this, do everything without grumbling or arguing. Do everything, even like showing up and working out your faith, right? It's hard when you wake up early in the morning to go to the gym, but you have to convince yourself to do it. He said, do it all. Get up, get off the couch, grab your weight, start lifting some weight spiritually. Do it all without grumbling or arguing, so that you may become blameless and pure children of God without fault in a warped and crooked generation. It's man, there are some crazy things going on in our day. And we read this and we're Paul, there's some crazy things going on in our day. It's as if he's speaking directly to us. Then you will shine among them like stars in the sky as you hold firmly to the word of life. That's the gospel of Jesus. That's the message of Jesus. That's the hope that he brings us. He said, and then I, Paul, sitting from prison, not having any part of this, then I'll be able to boast. Then you, who got off the couch and picked up your weights and started lifting your weight spiritually, then you will be able to boast on the day of Christ. Like when it's all said and done, that you did not run and you did not labor in vain. That you saw the challenge, that you got off the couch and that you picked up your weights. And God, why would Paul say labor in vain? He said, because there is so much more out there than just you. There is a world of people who need to experience the light of Jesus that you experienced, the gospel, the good news, the message of Jesus that saved you, that brought you hope, that brought you life. There's a world out there that needs to experience the light that you experienced and the grace that you experienced so undeservedly. He said, you're part of my plan to bring redemption and to bring hope to those who need to hear. So that at the end, you can look back and say, I didn't labor in vain. I didn't run in vain. But I was part of God's plan for redemption. He said, a faith like that, a faith that is exercised, it shines. It shines for the world to see, and they sit and they look, and they're amazed at what they see. Because you began to work out what God was working in. You do this. Guys, this is the pathway to the depths. This is how we overcome that shallow feeling. This is how we step out of where we've been comfortable for so long. And we begin to experience the richness and the goodness and all that God has for us. So, you got to work out what God's working in. In the last few minutes, before we close, I'm going to give you 4 ways you can do this. Now, here's what I want to challenge you with. I think these ways are important enough that we should all do all of these things. It's really my goal in life to let these things be the characteristics of who I am and who my family is. But if you're starting off and you're just taking a step out of the shallow and into the deep end, let me challenge you with this. What if this week you just picked one of the things I'm going to talk about? What if you just wrote one down or you snapped a picture of one of them on your phone and said, that's it. That's the thing I'm going to work on over this next season of my life. I'm going to step out of the shallows. I'm going to get off the couch. I'm going to begin to work out what God's working in. Here's the first one. The first thing you have to do is this. You have to go serve someone. Go serve someone. This is what we do here. This is what we love to do here. We have opportunities for this all over. We want to serve people. We want to love people the way that Jesus loved us. And if you're feeling that's your step this morning, here's what I would encourage you. Step out those doors after service. Find one of our amazing guest service volunteers who can tell you about all the incredible ways you can serve. In our Wambaland ministry or Upstreet, which is our elementary ministry, or Inside Out, lead a group of adults who need to know more about their faith. There are plenty of ways you can serve. You can serve in our community. We have an incredible event coming up, the Piney Grove Open House. You want to go deeper in your faith? You want to take a step out of the shallows into the deep end? Find someone to serve. Begin to serve them and tell me that's not stretching you and that's not growing you. I lead a number of volunteers, and I hear it all the time. I don't feel ready for this. I don't feel like I'm qualified for this. I said, just begin to walk it out. Begin to step in that direction. Go serve some of these students. Go serve some of these teenagers. And tell me if that doesn't grow your faith. That's the invitation for you this morning. Second, go be generous with someone. Go be generous with someone with your finances. And this, listen, when Jesus talks about money, he never talks about amount. He talks about percentage. So it's even across the board. Take some of the things that God's blessed you with and find a way to bless someone else. As Christians, we've been commanded. Each of us should have a plan for supporting our local church. We should all have a plan to do that. But really what he's saying is you should all have a plan to be a part of God's redemptive work in your community, of this idea of bringing the kingdom of heaven to the kingdom of earth. We should all have a plan to be involved there. If God's blessed you with finances, find a way to be involved. Here's how I would encourage you to do that. Find the thing that breaks your heart and go put your money there. What keeps you up? What do you read about online? What is the thing that bothers you, that doesn't sit right in you? Go put your resource there. Number 3, invite someone to church. We should all be doing this, but invite someone to church. Jim, I don't know any people. You have a neighbor? Go talk to your neighbor. Go love your neighbor. Go love them the way Jesus loved you with no strings attached. I'm just going to love you. I want to be a friend. I want to be there for you. I want to encourage you. Love like Jesus did. And when times come in our life, as you know, they come in all of our lives, where things begin to feel unsettled and you begin to look for something else. You need some peace. You need some healing. You need some comfort. You need some friends. You just need a community. I'm going to take the opportunity to say, hey, come to my church. Sit with me. Let me introduce you to some amazing people. Invite someone to church. Be a part of introducing the idea of Jesus to somebody for the first time. And tell me that doesn't grow your faith. And the last one is this, and this is something I think we should all be doing. To me, this is an all skate. If you're going to start anywhere, start here, and that's this. Read and listen with action. We're all so quick to jump into our Bible when we're feeling uncomfortable, or put on a worship song when we're feeling uncomfortable. And we love the words that are said, but it usually stays at the couch. What if the next time you read something that moves you, or you sing a song that moves you and it kind of captures your heart or your emotion, what if you actually got up and you did something with it? What if you actually did the thing that you're reading? What if you actually did the thing that the song talked about? What if you just put action to the words? What if we just got off the couch and picked up the weights and we started working out what God was working in? See, for so many of us, this is where we're at. We've heard for years, we've consumed for years, we've been in messages and we've read the Bible and we know the things that God wants us to do. We've just hesitated to do them because we've been stuck here. Today's an invitation to get off the couch and to begin to lift some weight spiritually, begin to throw some weight around spiritually, begin to strengthen your muscles spiritually. Begin to work out what God's working in. I guarantee that'll change your faith. I guarantee that'll grow your faith. And I said this earlier, for those of you who feel like, Jim, I don't think I'm ready. I feel a little unqualified. I don't think I can go lead some elementary students in a Bible study or as a small group leader. Let me encourage you, don't feel unqualified. There are many moments in my life where God asked me to do things that I felt unqualified. I had no business saying yes to, but I said yes. And in saying yes and beginning to working it out, God showed up and he did something in me and through me that I can't explain. You might feel unqualified, but God says, I love to use unqualified things. Let me work through you. Let me work in you as you begin to work out. And for those of you who've been here for a while, you say, Jim, I've done all that. I did all this at one point in my life. I served, I gave, I invite people to church. I read and I listen, and sometimes I even do something about it. Like, Jim, I've done that for years, and it feels kind of old to me. And now you kind of relegate yourself to the sidelines. Don't stay on the sidelines. I dare you to step back in and try it again. I dare you to step back in and reignite your faith and begin to serve people like Jesus, or begin to love people like Jesus did, to begin to be generous with people the way Jesus was generous with you. And see if that doesn't challenge your faith and inspire your faith and grow you a little deeper than you've ever been. This is how faith becomes compelling to us. And it's how it becomes compelling to those around us. It's what Paul said, at the end, they'll look at you and they'll wonder, how? It's like a star in the sky. And as Coldplay said, what a heavenly view. If we just got off the couch, we picked up our weights, and we started to work out all of the things that God is working in. Guys, I dare you to try it. Take a picture. I dare you, pick one. And over the next 3 months, over the rest of this year, what if you just did one of those things? See if God doesn't show up. See if your faith isn't challenged. See if your relationship with Jesus isn't deeper than it's ever been. You want to step out of the shallows into the deep end? Jesus said, this is the way to do it. Take these words of mine and put them into action. Let's do it. Let's get off the couch. Let's pick up our weights. Let's follow Jesus. Let me pray for you this morning. Heavenly Father, God, I thank you for the challenge to all of us, Lord, and it's honestly hard, and for some of us it's convicting, and it's, God, we hear this and we're just unsure, but I pray in this moment, God, that you would inspire us, that you would give us the courage to step in your direction, God, to look at these things and say, God, which one is it for me? Could I just take a step in a direction? Could I begin to put action to the faith that God, I've had for years, but I really just haven't done anything with? God, it's amazing to me that you choose to use us, that you choose to work through us. And sometimes it's humbling, Lord, that why would you choose me? Who am I? But you do. So I pray for all of us, Lord, as we begin to step into this direction, that you would give us the wisdom to know what to do and the courage to do it, to take a step of faith out of the shallows into the deep end. And as we do, Lord, I pray that you would grow our faith deeper than it's ever been, that it would become more compelling to us and to those around us. And I pray these things in Jesus' precious name. Amen. Amen. Guys, I love you.